Welcome back. I'm Alan Tutt, and this is Lesson 8 of Divine Dynamics. In this week's lesson, we're going to go beyond the basic manifestation process and address how you can use what you've learned so far to manifest really big goals. Let's start with the story. This one is from my high school days. I was interested in developing my body, and I had been lifting weights for a few years. One day, I was thinking about the story of Milo and the calf. For those who aren't familiar with the story, the idea is that this guy lifts a baby calf and continues lifting it once a day until it's a full-grown bull. Of course, no normal human can lift a bull, but then again, no one has ever approached it this way. At that time, the most I could lift in what's called a bench press was 150 pounds. Many of the football players at my school could lift 220 pounds, so I was about 70 pounds behind them. What I did was I decided to do one lift a day, starting with something very easy. The first day, I set the weight machine to 130 pounds, 20 below my maximum, and lifted that. Easy. The next day, I added 2.5 pounds and lifted that. Again, easy. Each day, I added another 2.5 pounds and lifted it once. That's it. No workout sessions. Not even a second lift. So the first week was easy. Every day, I'd go in and make an easy lift. By the time I got up to my previous maximum of 150, I had developed a pattern of success. So when I went in the next day and added 2.5 pounds to that, I could easily imagine that I would lift it. And I did. The same thing happened the following day. I would say to myself, it's just 2.5 pounds more than I did yesterday. This will be easy. And it was. I think I got to about 170 pounds before I failed to lift the weight. But I just went in the next day and repeated the attempt, and that time I did it. Within a short period of time, I'd gotten up to 202.5 pounds, which was 50 more than I had been able to do before this experiment. I was very proud of myself. And all this was just doing one lift a day, gradually increasing the weight little by little, starting with something I knew I could do easily. There are several lessons in this story. The most obvious one is that when we want to reach a large goal, it's a good idea to take smaller steps on the way there. This is the standard approach to reaching big goals. Break it down into smaller and smaller goals until you can see something you can do easily. Another lesson is that when you see something as easy, it becomes easy, even if it was previously beyond your abilities a short time before. A third lesson is that once you've established a pattern of success, it becomes a lot easier to believe you will continue to be successful, even if you occasionally miss a step. And the fourth lesson in the story is one about the amount of work required. Most folks who want to increase their ability to lift heavier weights will spend hours in the gym, exercising the various muscles involved and pushing themselves harder and harder. In this example, I did none of that, yet increased my maximum lift within a short period of time. Increasing your ability to manifest new things is much the same. Many people will spend hours and hours repeating affirmations, doing visualizations, or spending time in prayer. That can work, but what's even more important is how you see the task in front of you. One of the first jobs I had, working at a Wendy's restaurant, taught me the value of looking at a task as something small and easy. One of the managers I worked for would often tell me to stop approaching each thing I did as if it were a job, but to see it as a small task instead. At first, I really didn't understand what he was talking about, and said that I needed to spend just as much time and energy doing something regardless of the way I saw it. Even after he showed me what he meant, I felt he was just being sloppy. After a month of working for him, I realized what he meant. When you see a task in front of you as a big, difficult goal, you approach it differently than if you saw it as something easy. Your expectations are different. And when you see something as big and difficult, you spend more time than is necessary preparing to do the job. When you see something as an easy task, you You just go in and do it without preparing, and it gets done a whole lot quicker. I also learned that many times it's faster to do a task several times quickly than to do it once in detail. It took many years before I realized this can also be applied to manifesting. It used to be that whenever I started to approach a manifesting task as if it were something really big, I imagined it as something the size of a 10-story building. When I approached something as if it were going to be easy, I saw it as something I can hold in my hands. When I finally realized how this was impacting my results, I started to imagine the 10-story building shrinking until I can hold it in my hands. At that point, it felt easier to manifest, and my results improved. This is the main thing I do when I set out to manifest something bigger than usual. It's what I did when I dispelled a tornado that was coming directly at my home. I imagined the tornado spinning in the palm of my hand, and imagined that I was blowing it in 1,000 directions. Within about 5 minutes, the news reported the tornado was gone. This is also what I did back in January of 2020 when I set out to manifest world peace. That's one of those things we usually think of as an impossible goal, or at least one so big and complex no one person could do it. In fact, I had been thinking of pulling together a global prayer chain of 89,000 people, train them on the harmonic prayer process with this course, and accomplish the goal that way. By the way, I'm still planning this. Then the thought struck me, what would happen if I truly believed I could do this on my own? So I put myself into that mind state, pretending that I was such a powerful channel for divine power, I could do this thing. I saw the entire planet as something I can hold in my hands, and proceeded to imagine that everyone on this tiny planet got along, experiencing love, joy, happiness, and abundant prosperity. In these types of cases, I also make a point to focus on the idea that I am a channel for divine power, and this power can accomplish anything without limit. If you have to, remind yourself that you're not doing the actual work. The only thing you're doing is sending a clear message to the divine, and the divine does the work for you. That was another problem I had in the early days. I thought I was the one directing universal power and had to supply enough force to make things happen. That's one of those things that if you believe it will work, it will. However, that's approaching the task as if it were a big, difficult job, and it works a whole lot easier when you approach it as a small task instead. Keep this in mind. The belief in difficulty creates difficulty. The belief in easy results creates easy results. Now, about the world peace manifestation. At one point during the current COVID-19 pandemic, I started to wonder if this was a step towards world peace and if I had created the pandemic. In talking with a few others, I found that they were also wondering the same thing, since they were asking for less work and more free time. In most cases, manifestations of this magnitude happen when groups of people work together. Also, when manifesting big goals, it's sometimes necessary to clear away the old reality before a new one can be created. Because of this, some things happen which are often perceived as negative. The worldwide pandemic certainly isn't the most enjoyable thing ever, but it may be necessary to bring us to world peace. This is when you have to maintain a faith that the manifestation will happen, and it's just a matter of time before you see the final outcome. As long as you continue to relax deeply, connect with the divine, imagine the end result in detail with positive emotion, and trust that it will happen, anything that takes place after that can be considered a step in the right direction. You just have to remember that the divine knows more than you do and can see exactly how events will lead to the desired outcome. Now, here's how you can start to implement this idea for yourself. Think about something you know to be an easy task. Think about how you feel about it. What are the main points that describe this feeling? Then, think of something you believe to be a huge undertaking. How do you feel about that one? Identify the main points. What's different in the way you feel about each of these? That's the element you want to change in how you perceive big goals to make them feel easier to accomplish. Maybe it's a size thing like with me. Maybe it's a difference in weight. One feels heavier than the other. Maybe it's brightness, pitch, or a feeling of vibration. Maybe one feels smooth and the other feels rough. Whatever the differences are, realize that this is how you can make big goals feel easier to achieve. This alone can make your manifestations much more successful. I've mentioned before the importance of starting with easy things when you're developing your manifesting muscles. Manifest your next meal, or an indoor bed at the end of the day. You know, things that would probably happen anyways. This is like me lifting the 130-pound weight when I could actually lift 150. Just take it easy for a while to get a running start on successfully manifesting your intentions. The more successes you get under your belt, even if they're easy ones, the better you'll do when you get to the big leagues. Once you have a few dozen easy wins, gradually increase the difficulty. Manifest someone smiling at you sometime in the next 24 hours. Manifest a phone call from a friend, or an empty parking space near the entrance of the next store you shop at. Little by little, focus on manifesting something that seems just a little less likely to have occurred on its own. Make a handful of attempts, and if it still hasn't happened, go back and manifest something easier to regain the feeling of success. Then try it again. Before you know it, you'll be manifesting things others consider impossible, including things like true love, everlasting joy, rock-solid self-confidence, effervescent charisma, authentic self-expression, abundant prosperity, and impenetrable peace of mind. Once you realize just how easily you can manifest anything and everything you desire, your life will never be the same. Eventually, you'll decide to manifest something so big and complex, none of these suggestions seem to work. Many people look at the pyramids and conclude there's no way humans could have built them, and assume that aliens must have been involved. Now, I wasn't there at the time, so I don't know if aliens helped build the pyramids or not. However, I do know that several groups of humans have proven that it is possible to quarry, transport, and lift stones as big as those used in the pyramids, and therefore it is possible humans could have built them. When you have a complex problem to solve, it can be a good idea to identify the component parts of the problem and solve each of them separately. In the case of the pyramids, one of the more puzzling aspects was how could stones that big be transported across the desert? What has been found is that if you pour water on the sand, the stones slide much easier, and it's possible for a small group of people to drag the stones to where they're needed. There's an equally simple solution to the problem of aligning the pyramids with true north. Whenever I start to work on a problem, the very first thing I do is assure myself that there is a solution and I just have to find it. Occasionally, I'll say to myself, okay, genius, what's the answer here? However, what I found to work best is to relax into myself, open myself up to divine guidance, and ask for help there. I get much better answers with this approach than I could ever do with my own conscious mind. This will be the focus of Lesson 13, the last lesson in this module. When approaching really big projects, manifesting or otherwise, you can usually break them down into a handful of stages or phases. Like building a house, you prepare the ground, lay the foundation, build the supporting structures, install the infrastructure like electrical wiring, plumbing, and so forth, then cover the walls. From there, it's just a matter of decorating and furnishings. Or, if you want to write a book, you do your research, organize the material, identify various stories that will help illustrate the points, then write each section one at a time. Sometimes you have to manifest a job before you can manifest a business, before you can manifest a life of financial independence. Or maybe you need to manifest a pleasing personality before manifesting a love relationship, before manifesting a long and happy marriage. When you relax and tap into divine guidance, all this becomes much easier to see and understand. When thinking about your ultimate goal, ask yourself or your deeper divine wisdom, what do you need to make this happen? If the answer is something you're not sure if you can do, ask, what do you need to make this thing happen? Keep adding these prerequisite steps until you find something you can start working on right now. It might be as simple as searching online for more information, or it might be manifesting greater confidence in your manifesting ability. Once you arrive at something you can start doing now, follow the sequence of steps you've planned out, manifesting one thing at a time. Of course, throughout the process, you also want to focus on manifesting the end result. You might find that some steps take care of themselves. One step at a time will take you anywhere. That sounds familiar. Okay, here we are. Time for the homework assignment. Your homework assignment this week is to find something you'd like to manifest which is so big, so complex, and so grand, you might even have a hard time describing the whole thing. What is the biggest, most glorious manifestation you can possibly imagine? Would you like to eliminate poverty or hunger or war across the entire world? Would you like to establish an organization that helps people turn their life around? Would you like to retire to your own island with enough money to travel in luxury for the rest of your life? Whatever it is, write it down. Then start thinking about what steps and stages would be necessary to manifest this. Would you need to find experts to help guide the planning of the project? Do you need to develop certain skills? Do you need to find investors? Would you need to attract volunteers around the globe? And finally, find something small and easy you can start doing now. Don't worry if it looks like it would take 20 years to make the whole thing happen. We're just getting started. And I have a lot more to show you how to make all this happen a whole lot faster. One step at a time, remember? Until next time, be blessed, my friend.